Welcome back to GEMS Podcast. I am your host and founder, Miss Genesis Amaris Kemp, and with me today is Jaden Rae. And here is a bit about Jaden. She is the founder of Steamy Kitchen, a site dedicated to mindful living and food-based wellness. She has authored two best-selling cookbooks and is currently writing a book on microdosing, psychedelics. Sorry. Her 17-year-old site receives 8 million page views from over 500,000 unique visitors each month. She's also a regular contributor on the list and daytime television shows. Wow, that's impressive. So without further ado, we're going to learn about microdosing. What is it? How can you benefit from it? And all of that good stuff with Jaden Rae here on GEMS Podcast.
Oh, I'm so excited to share information with you and your audience. Thank you so much for taking the time to, just chat with me today.
My pleasure, Jaden. So before we dive into our segment, I definitely want you to share a fun and interesting fact about yourself as a way of an icebreaker.
Oh my gosh, fun and interesting facts. Well, I have so many interesting facts. This year I am going to be turning 50 in August. And so I feel like I've lived, 50 years. That's a long time. And I feel like I also have another 50 years to go. So I'm really excited about, all the lessons that I've learned and taking all the lessons that I've learned and all the, the heartaches as well and making my next 50 years, the next half of my life really amazing. So back to your question, interesting fact. I actually am my zone of genius. Have you ever read this book called The Big Leap?
I have not.
Okay, so it is one of the best books I have ever read. I highly suggest that you pick up a copy into your audience as well, because it helps you discover what your zone of genius is. So everyone knows what their zone of competency is, which is something that you're just naturally good at. Like, I'm good in the kitchen, and I'm good at television, and I'm good at writing, and I'm good at being I'm somewhat good at gardening a little bit. But really, what is your zone of genius? Like, what is that one thing that not only are you good at, but people just say like, oh my gosh, that was absolutely amazing. So my zone of genius is taking something incredibly complicated. In this case, it's microdosing and psychedelics, and breaking it down and getting people excited about, oh my gosh, this is accessible. I can do this, and bringing that energy in. So that's my zone of genius, is adding excitement to anything. It could be something so mundane as chemistry, but making it so exciting and bringing just new energy into it. So that's what my zone of genius is.
That is super cool. So the fun part is we're both Leos. So when is your birthday?
Oh my gosh, the beginning of August, the first week of August. I'm excited. August, I'm a Leo. I'm very much of a Leo in some ways, in the business sense, where I take charge. If I want something, I'm going to go get it. That's me as the businesswoman. But on the other hand, as a mother, it requires a Leo mom's really intense, right? And I know you're pregnant now, but you'll understand. Is this going to be your first child?
It is.
Oh my gosh, congratulations. And you'll understand, like, being a Leo mom, you're very protective, and you're, as a Leo personality, you've got to sometimes it serves you really well. And then sometimes you got to put that Leo-ness just aside a little bit and bring out some of the other qualities that are just a little more softer. So, personally in my relationship with my boyfriend, or if I'm a mom to my kids, that Leo side of me just I have to tuck it away a little bit, because it can be really intense.
Oh yeah, my husband told me that. He's like,
really? Yeah. So your husband knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, sometimes I could be a bit much, but I like what I like, and I like things to be done in an orderly fashion and etc. Right. But it could also be because I've always worked in male dominated fields. So my background's actually oil and gas. So it is definitely male dominated for sure. And you definitely have to hold your own, as well as have tough skin when you're in that industry.
Yeah. And the secret being a female is it's like martial artists. The best boxers and the best martial artists are not the ones that use brute force, right? It's not about brute force. It's about like being like a bamboo where you're fluid and you're strong as heck, but you're also, you can yield and you can bend in the wind and you can adjust to situations. That's what makes women so special. And I bet you that's where you get your power from. It's not just being a brute force, but being that yielding, strong bamboo base.
Yes. Up until, someone pisses you off and then, that Leo side comes out and that inner lion just roars.
Yeah, I wanted to make a shirt that says "Don't mess with my vibe." I think I'm going to make that. Don't mess with my vibe. But actually, the word "mess" would be replaced with a bad word.
Let's dive into microdosing. So first of all, I want you to share with the audience what exactly is microdosing.
Okay, so microdosing is the practice of taking a very small amount of psychedelic or medicine. It doesn't even have to be a psychedelic, but in my case, it's magic mushrooms. So taking a very small, minute dose of that, it's called subperceptual, meaning that you don't really feel it. Like you don't take it and then you're like, oh, I'm going through a trip, or I feel like I'm on mushroom. That's not what it's about. What subperceptual microdosing is, a little tiny fraction of a dose that if you do feel it, you take too much. And it's really, I'll say it like this. A few years ago, Johns Hopkins did a study and they found that, this is Johns Hopkins, okay? It's not just some backyard scientist, right? Johns Hopkins did a study and they found that psilocybin, which is magic mushrooms, microdosed, like that in a fraction of a dose, is so much more effective, like 4 times more effective than SSRIs for battling depression and anxiety. And so there's science behind this, and there's so much research that is just now coming up because psilocybin, magic mushrooms were lumped into dangerous drugs, right? Back when, Nixon was president and he wanted the war on drugs and Reagan as well. And it's unfortunate because a lot of these psychedelics are really medicine. And I feel like, if I can go out to the forest, forage for a mushroom, pick it, that shouldn't be illegal.
Okay, now let's talk about some myths around the psychedelics and the magic mushrooms, because some people are like, oh, what's the difference between mushrooms and weed and whatnot? It just, I just take a little bit and get a little high and get that little buzz. But then whenever you don't know how to properly consume it, can it be more harmful and detrimental to you?
Well, like anything misused is very harmful. So it's your intention, and it's also doing your research and your practice. When I first started looking into microdosing, I had tried every single antidepressant that I was prescribed, like every one of them that you see on the news, or you go to your doctor's office and see pamphlets around. I've tried all of them and none of them worked for me because the side effects were worse than the depression or anxiety itself. So I started looking for different ways to find to treat myself that was more natural, and that's how I came across psychedelics. And on Netflix, there's Fantastic Fungi. If you haven't seen that, is a beautiful documentary, just beautifully shot. Hulu had 9 Perfect Strangers that talked about microdosing and magic mushrooms, and Newsweek had it on the front cover of the magazine late last year. So it's becoming more and more in the mainstream. And there's a lot of researchers coming out now. In terms of like the myths surrounding microdosing, do you trip? No. That's called tripping. If you want to do a big dose and you want to, go and have a nice trip and a nice journey, yes, you can. But, the practice of microdosing is not about that. The practice of microdosing is using it as medicine, and making sure that, this supports you and your body, and not necessarily like you're tripping out or anything. It looks kind of like cannabis. You can microdose on cannabis to aid you to sleep at night with an edible. This is what I do. I microdose with cannabis at night. Or you can smoke a whole joint and get stoned out of your mind. So it's really your intention.
Wow. And thank you for sharing that, Jaden, because it's always good to ask these questions. That way we're learning about it, because if you never hear about this, then you may never know how this could be an alternative medicine versus the pharmaceutical companies pushing so many pills on you, and before you know it, you're taking one pill, that pill gives you a side effect, then you're taking another
Right.
pill to help you with that side effect, then you're going through the little band-aids, like band-aid after band-aid, but not really getting to the root cause. So you fell into microdosing whenever you were looking for something to help with your anxiety and depression, right?
Yes. And in fact, I love your podcast because there was one guest, I think it was Lucy. I don't remember which podcast it was, but she said something about rebooting your operating system. Like,
Oh yeah,
if you
Lucy Liu.
have, yeah, Lucy, okay, then it was. And so it's, I was looking for something to reboot my operating system, and I found microdosing to be the best tool ever. And, I always say, like, people love to learn in metaphors. So I'm going to give you a metaphor on what microdosing has done for me. Microdosing is like if you like to ski and you're on top of a ski mountain, and you have your favorite path. You can carve your favorite path. You see the tracks, and it's like, okay, I know how to do this. And you can also see other people's track. I'm like, oh, I'm falling into this in this track. Well, what microdosing does is it's like fresh snow, no tracks, and you can carve your own way. You can make your own way from scratch without having, you don't have to follow the same tracks that you've done every single day. You can carve a new path. So, for me, it was just that groundedness that gave me the strength and just the space. I would say like grace and space. It's given me the grace and space to reboot my operating system and create my own path without having to worry about what I've done in the past.
And that's beautiful because it's like every day you're hitting that reset button. You're not feeling sluggish. You're gaining a new perspective, a new vantage point, and then you're carving your own way. And I love how you shared the metaphor about, the skis, because as you were talking about it, I was visualizing it and I was like, oh, yeah, I remember in Colorado when we were trying to ski, and I am not a skier. And I was like, one and done. And I was like, maybe I'll try snowboarding eventually. So when you think about microdosing and these magic mushrooms, can you cook with these magic mushrooms or no?
Yes, you can if you wanted to. I prefer, because I'm microdosing and I'm taking such a small amount, like it's really like maybe like a tenth of a normal dose if you're tripping, or a 1/20th. It just depends on your tolerance and what fits your body, because everyone's going to be different. You can cook with mushrooms. I like to think of it as medicine.
Okay.
And so it goes into, I grind it in a coffee grinder and I put it into an empty gelatin capsule so that it's kind of like a vitamin for me. It's a medicine for me. But I've also, at home on the countertop, I made some mushroom pasta, fresh handmade pasta, and I sprinkled some mushroom powder on it. And I had to label it really, really clear so that I knew, like, okay, this is plain pasta and this is magical pasta. So you don't get them mixed up. But yes, you can absolutely cook with them, but most people will use it in a capsule, especially with microdosing.
Okay, so does it come like an actual mushroom and then you have to grind it down? Do you have, like, paint me a visual, because I've never
Okay.
seen these. So these are all this is so new to me. So
Oh my gosh. Oh, I'm so excited. Okay, so it's like, imagine a regular mushroom, okay, fresh. And then what people normally do to preserve it is to put it in the dehydrator, so it's dried. So it's a dried mushroom. And then you can take that. That's how you usually find them. You can take that and then grind it in a coffee grinder and measure it out, weigh it, put it in capsules as your medicine. Or, some people like to just eat, like, I'll just eat part of a stem today as my microdose, because I know exactly how much my dose is. And so if you are familiar with that, then yes. But normally when you see them, they're all sorts of sizes. And I would say generally they're like this big, maybe some this big, but they're dried, dehydrated, and they taste like dried mushrooms. That's all it tastes like. It doesn't taste like unicorns and rainbows, but it does taste like mushrooms. I don't care for the taste of them personally, which is why I put them in capsules.
So you could just swallow it whole in one
Exactly. Yeah.
serving. And then with the mushrooms, because I know there's so many variations of mushrooms out there. Which ones are used for the micro dosing? Because there's like shiitake mushrooms, there's this
Right.
mushroom, there's like
Well,
oh,
there's a segment that's called functional mushrooms.
okay.
There's a segment called gourmet mushrooms, and then there's a segment that's psychedelic mushrooms. So let's talk about gourmet mushrooms first. So those are the shiitakes, the button mushrooms, things that you eat and it tastes delicious into a dish. And then there are functional mushrooms, which are also edible, like lion's mane. Have you ever seen a lion's mane mushroom?
No, I haven't. What does it look like?
Oh
Like the
my God, it's
lions.
so amazing. It's like a lion's cascading mane, and it's generally they're white or golden, and it's just so beautiful. But that mushroom is very beneficial to your brain and for your cognitive ability. So people that are going through Alzheimer's, or if you want to, like I'm entering in a phase where I keep forgetting things now, right? My life, and taking lion's mane mushrooms or supplements will help you with your brain. And then there are some mushrooms that are good for your blood pressure. So those are called functional mushrooms. Not all of them are edible. You can make teas with them, you can make tinctures with them, but they're legal and they're functional and they provide a purpose. And then the category that I also love is a psychedelic mushroom, which is you got to be careful because not all mushrooms are edible, right? You got to make sure they're as specific, that you do your research and like, this is a psychedelic mushroom that is also safe for consumption. And those mushrooms that provide you with psychedelic experience, or if you microdose, a medicinal benefit.
And thank you for walking through the three different categories of mushrooms, because I'm actually learning a lot about mushrooms and
Right?
it's bringing the education to this platform. We're here to
There you
educate.
go.
So, psychedelics, as you keep talking about these psychedelic mushrooms, I don't know why this movie just keeps popping up in my head, but there's this movie with Snoop Dogg. It's called Soul Plane. And so Godfrey is in the movie too. So Godfrey is the African guy and he's like the co-pilot. And then he's like, oh no, don't eat those mushrooms. So then Snoop Dogg just starts eating these mushrooms and then he was so high, y'all. And then he was like, oh my gosh. And he's on like, the microphone when they're giving the safety briefing. He's like, dang, we're 30,000 feet. I'm afraid of heights. And like the passengers are just hearing it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the mushrooms made him that high. And it's like, it's comical, but then it's like, whenever you think about these psychedelic mushrooms, things like this do exist. But if people never, take the time to really understand, like, okay, what are the benefits of this mushrooms? What are the
Right.
extremes of it? Then you could have that high effect where you're, in your case, called tripping.
Right, an unexpected effect, and you never want to be in an unexpected situation. It's kind of like, if you've ever not done psychedelics before, it's like someone spiking your drink and you didn't know it, and all of a sudden, and they taste delicious. You don't expect it, and it's a shock, and it's actually a negative experience, right? So your intention is so incredibly important whether you microdose or go on a journey with psychedelics. Either way, your intentions are incredibly important.
So whenever you think about how far you've came on your journey and the benefits that you've seen by using the psychedelic mushrooms, Jaden, what led you to getting ready to write your book on this topic?
Well, when I started microdosing, I would just keep track of how I was feeling, whether something was working or not, on little post-it notes. And then, of course, those post-it notes would get lost. I would stick them everywhere. I'm like, oh, I need to make sense of this because I'm tracking my progress and I'm measuring whether or not something works or not. And doing it on post-it notes is not working, And, I started designing my own piece of paper that I would just write my journal, my daily journal. Like, this is what time I took my microdose. This is when this is something bad that happened in the afternoon, but I very quickly turned it around and I was able to, thrive in the situation. And I wanted those notes, and I wanted to know how well I was sleeping. I wanted to know how happy I was. I wanted to know, not every day is going to be amazing. That's never going to happen, but the things that are unexpected and, maybe negative that happen, how quickly can I flip it? That's what I'm tracking. So, when I created created this whole worksheet for myself. I'm like, I could turn this into a book because I want to help other people. So many of my friends were like, I want to microdose, I want to do this, but how do I see if it's working on? So that's why I'm writing this book. It's for all the people that are brand new to microdosing. They don't know what they're doing and they want a systematized way to track it so that you can adjust.
So is it more like a workbook or is it like a
Yes.
book?
Well, it's both. It's really a daily journal and a workbook. In fact, the front cover, I want this to be sort of a workbook that you work out of, and your journal. On the front cover of this book, my name's not on it. My name's only on the spine and maybe on the back cover, because I want this to be your journey, not my journey, your journey. Who cares who the author is, right? This is just a tool I created. So we're launching this on soft launch on May 1st as a pre-order. I'm so excited because my team and I work so hard in compiling stories of people who microdose so that you can learn from other people's journey as well.
And congratulations, because it's
Thank
right around the
you.
corner.
I know.
This is just such an interesting topic. So whenever you think about microdosing as a whole, okay, let's talk about the aspects. So where you go get the mushrooms,
Mm.
do you go to like a dispensary? Do you go to the grocery store? Or where do you get your
Well,
magic
yeah.
mushrooms?
First of all, it's illegal. So it's not
Oh,
like I'm not advocating go find magic mushrooms and do this illegally, because this is completely illegal. Okay. But I do want my outcome for this conversation is for you to do your research. There is so much research, and all you have to do is type in magic mushroom research, magic mushroom clinical trials, and psilocybin is the word for, if you want to do some research online for that. But there is so much information, even on YouTube. If you're in Canada, they're starting to open up mushroom dispensaries because it's decriminalized in Canada. But here in the United States right now, there's only little pockets of communities where, that's decriminalized, like in Oakland, in Oregon, in Colorado. I'm in Nevada, where it's still illegal. So where to find information, I would start on YouTube. And this is how I started. This is how I learned how to grow mushrooms, because you can't just go to a store and buy them, right? You have to either grow them or, find them underground. So what I did was I went on YouTube, I typed in, how to grow magic mushrooms. I watched as many videos as I could. And then there was always consistently one person that I just kept coming back to again and again and again. And then his name is Willie Myko. And I decided to join his Patreon, which is, $20 a month. And I'm part of his community now. And so this community, we just help each other. And it's the most beautiful community because everyone's in with a shared vision of like, let's heal ourselves with nature. Let's heal ourselves, take the power back into our own hands, our health back into our own hands, and get off pharmaceutical medication and pharmaceutical dangerous drugs that you can become very addicted to, like a lot of the SSRIs out there.
And you mentioned SSRI. So what exactly does that stand for? Because I always like to put context around it.
Okay. So I'm going to have to look up exactly what the SSRI, but they're basically antidepressants. So
Okay.
like the Prozacs. And, think of any antidepressant that you've ever heard of that belongs in this category of antidepressants. So it's pharmaceutical, and it's to manage your anxiety and your depression. But I found that with those type of medication, it's sort of, I was living in a very blunted world. My emotions were very blunted. And I was only able to navigate a very narrow set of emotions. And I just felt like that's not quality of life. That's just blunting feelings versus, really healing.
And thank you for sharing that, because when you were sharing it, it kind of sounds like you were going through the blob. Because like whenever you're taking those medications, it's like it's clouding your judgment, and everything's kind of a little cloudy, and it's like you're losing a sense of who you are. But whenever you started doing microdosing, it's like you actually feel like happy, like you're cognizant, and there's so many other benefits. And I like the fact that you mentioned that so people know that it is illegal, but there are ways that you can grow it. So if you are growing it, like in your case, and someone were to find out about it, like, would you be like fined or anything, since it's technically quote unquote illegal, but it's on your property?
Yes. It is a legal substance. So it just depends on where you live. There's some states and some cities where they've decriminalized it, kind of like cannabis. Cannabis is not federally legal,
Yeah.
but states have their own rules. So you just follow what your own rules of the state are and look up your own rules and see if if psilocybin mushrooms are decriminalized in your area. But I think it's going to happen pretty fast. Every day, I have a news alert set up for psilocybin. And every day I get more and more articles around new studies being done, new research being done, funded research being done. And that is incredibly important because, it's just, it's so effective. And I will say, like, there's one question that you ask your guests that I love this question, and it is what sparks you, what ignites you, and what fuels you. And I wouldn't be able to tell you that a couple of years ago. Like, I don't know what sparks me or ignites me or fuels me, but because I've done so much work on myself with psychedelics and mushrooms, that those questions and those answers come very, very fast and very easy. And the reason why is because personal experience is the lane that I drive in is very much the present lane. I don't spend a lot of time in the past ruminating, and I don't spend a whole lot of time in the future daydreaming. My focus is right here and right now. And when you're so present, it's kind of like it's like meditating, right? When you're so present, you can see so much beauty around you, inside of you, and in whoever you're speaking with.
That is beautiful. And I do like to ask that question because I also believe it's so important that people take the time to really self-reflect on who they are and where they want to go in life. But then also another thing that I want to challenge you, Jaden, is with the psychedelics and the psilocybin, now that you're on this journey, have you thought about partnering with any physicians? Because we do know there are physicians who have the medical marijuana card. So if they're already moving in that area and we see based on the research that is being done, how it's helping people with epilepsies, Alzheimer, cancer patients, and etc., why can't we add the psychedelics to that and see the effects in that manner versus, putting patients on, these pharmaceutical drugs, which in me and my husband's opinion, that is the real war on drugs.
Right, exactly. Isn't that funny that that's the war on drugs that we're talking about? I think that's hilarious. There are so many doctors and scientists out there that are currently doing work around therapy. Psychedelic assisted therapy is what they call it. Incredible work, because a lot of them are, there's a risk when you talk about psychedelics. It's illegal. Am I going to open myself to the dangers? And I was willing to take that risk. That's why I'm on this podcast with you and being interviewed about something that I do illegally every single day. I joke that every day I do an activity that is punishable by 10 years in jail and $500,000 fine, and every day I do this. And, it takes a lot of people that have the courage to say, okay, I know this is illegal, but this is so right. This feels so right to talk about this. It feels so right to encourage people to do their own research. I'm not encouraging people to do psychedelics or do anything illegal, but I want you to do research and look it up yourself. Yeah.
The proof is in the pudding, and we all have a responsibility to do our due diligence. But if you don't know about a subject matter and you don't know how it can help you and be beneficial, then you're just remaining in that ignorance lane. Whereas whenever you're opening your mind to endless possibilities and thinking beyond, because obviously mushrooms were placed here to eat, consume, and all of that good stuff. So what's the harm of tapping back into nature and allowing nature to fuel your body in a holistic manner?
And I'll say, it's all about authenticity and congruency. When you meet someone, you can see just like you, I can see your eyes, and I can see your face, and I can see your energy that you put out is very congruent with what you stand for. And with microdosing, that's what it's helped me, that voice in my head align with the energy in my heart, align with the energy that I put out. That is all very congruent. And that's the biggest benefit I get from, microdosing on mushrooms is it has given me the space to to align everything, and be who I want to be, be congruent with my authentic self.
Yes, and that's what it's about, Jaden. Like you have to be so sure in yourself that when somebody comes up to you, they're like, "Oh, Jaden has it figured out." Yeah, because you're not trying to be like anybody else. You're trying to be Jaden Rae. So,
Yeah.
on that note, as we begin to wind down, we're gonna play a fun game. 10 questions with Jen, the host with the mostest. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
So, question 1: favorite color?
Oh, before I would say black because I wanted to hide. I lost 100 pounds. I'm sorry. I lost a combined 100 pounds of all the ups and downs that I've been. Combined is 100 pounds. But I lost, the biggest drop that I had was 40 pounds.
Oh,
And so
wow.
before it was black, it don't look like it today because I am wearing grays and blacks. But my favorite color is yellow, like this color, bright, happy yellow. Except for today, I decided to put black on.
So, yellow like the sun.
Yes.
So 2, dream car.
Oh, I'm driving it. It's a Jeep Wrangler. It's the hybrid. So, because I hate getting gas, but I also hate the thought of I only have 50 miles left on this charge. Where can I plug in? Like, when your iPhone's at 20%, you're like, where can I plug in? I'd get the same thing with my car. So having a hybrid is, oh my God, the best.
Amazing. 3, if you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Oh, I love that question. My superpower that I would love to have, actually, and I'm honing it, is being able to be just someone that anyone can say anything to and not be afraid, because I don't judge, and hold that beautiful grace and space for other people.
I like that. So heart-centered and helping others. So servant leadership plus heart-centeredness. 4, if you could go anywhere in the world and money was no object, where would it be?
It'd be Southeast Asia because I have never been to Vietnam. I've never been to Thailand, but oh my gosh, to eat my way through Vietnam, that's my dream. All I want to do is just eat. So that's what I would love to do.
You're making me hungry. Now you're making me
I
want
know.
some pho and some Vietnamese egg rolls.
Right, exactly.
5, favorite movie.
Oh, Princess Bride. Oh gosh, I love that movie. It's just funny, funny, funny. And yeah, that's, there's so many lines from that movie. What's your favorite movie?
Oh, I have a lot of them. I'm like a movie buff. So
Are you?
I definitely like Made in Manhattan. I'm a J-Lo fan. I
Yeah.
like Monster in Law. I love comedies. We would go on and on forever. And I'm the type of person, when I watch the movies, like I could quote the lines in the movies.
Oh, I love it. You know what movie that I haven't seen in a long time, but was my favorite movie in right after high school, is Harold and Maude. Have you ever seen that movie?
Mm-mm. No,
It's
I
a
have
beautiful
not.
movie. Yeah, look it up. It's an old movie, but shot in maybe like late 70s. But I love this movie, Harold and Maude.
I have to look that up. Because
Yeah.
the only thing Harold that came in my head was like Harold and Kumar.
Oh yeah, no, completely opposite. It's a beautiful, beautiful coming of age movie.
Oh, okay. So we're on 6, right? I think I lost
Yep.
track. 6. Ooh, so this is a good question. If you were just jamming out to the beat, what would you be listening to?
Right now, my favorite is War on Drugs. Speaking of War on Drugs, so it's so funny that this is a theme, right? So it's a group called War on Drugs, and he's got a slant of Bob Dylan in his singing voice, but just beautiful music, and it's great to clean the house with, great to relax with, and wind the day down with great energy music.
7, favorite food.
There's so many, but if I had to just pick one, food is my love language. It's definitely just rice. That's the basis of the Chinese cuisine. That's what I grew up with. Every day we would always have rice. And it's something so simple. White rice, just steamed plain white rice, no seasoning, but nothing, just steamed plain rice. That is actually my favorite because it's just so simple. And in fact, my tattoo, simple pleasures deeply felt. This is my life motto. This is what I live by. And something so simple and so plain like rice, I take deep pleasure in.
And you know, the rice that Chinese and Asian people eat is totally different because there's the jasmine rice, which tastes so good. Then there's the basmati rice. So I was like, whenever you said rice, I'm like, there has to be a specific rice because not all the rice tastes the same. Like when I go to a Chinese restaurant, it tastes different than the rice at the Vietnamese place.
Oh, for sure. I love jasmine rice because I love that fragrance, and the jasmine, it's called jasmine rice because they also grow jasmine in the same field. So it influences that varietal, and it's just a fragrance of it. I don't think they do that practice anymore, but in the beginning, way back in the day, they would, that's how it became scented. But you know, jasmine rice is my favorite.
Awesome. 8, are you a tea or coffee drinker or neither?
Well, it depends on what time of the day. In the morning, I'm 1 cup of coffee, sometimes 2, it just depends. In the afternoon, I have my either hot water or tea. I like, even during the summer, I like drinking room temperature or warm water because that's what my body wants. You know, I don't like to shock it so much. And then, you know, just right now I'm drinking hot water because it's just, that's what my body wants.
And that also helps with digestion too. Like after you eat, it just makes everything go down good. So let's think. Now, let me think what question I want to ask you. Oh, gotta ask you this. Are you an Apple or Android user?
Oh, for sure, Apple.
Apple. Okay, she's
for sure, Apple. I had my very first computer when I was little. It was a VIC-20, and we're going back like in the 70s. Okay, VIC-20 was my computer, and then I had the first Apple, and I've had every single model since then. And it's hard for me to go back to anything but, because I'm just so used to that ecosystem. So if you asked me to reboot my operating system, it wouldn't be choosing Android. It would be choosing a newer version of Apple.
See, I am split. So I have MacBook, but then Android phone. So I have my ecosystems do not talk.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And then now we're on 10, right? 10.
All right.
So this is the pass or play. So you could either, 1, ask me any question you want to know about me, or I can ask you one last question before we wind down.
I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay.
You know, I talked about my life motto, which is simple pleasure is deeply felt. I actually have 2 life mottos. That's one of them. And the other one is to create magical moments every day. So I would love to hear from you. What's your life motto? What sparks you every day? And what do you think about to set the tone and the theme for your day?
So I have one quote, and then I have like one of my sentiments. So the one quote that helps me resonate is by Babe Ruth that says, "Never let the fear of striking out keep you from playing the game, because fear is a mindset that conditions you to remain stagnant and complacent." And then the second one is, "Live every day as if it were your last, because tomorrow is not promised, but the present is here for you to create those memories." And that just really became very evident whenever I lost my dad unexpectedly in November of 2020. And he was hands down my ride or die, my best friend. And I don't know, my dad and I just had such a really good relationship that, you know, my husband said, "Oh my gosh, like before my dad even passed, if you ever lost your dad, I don't know what you would do. Like I would literally have to be there." And that's what it was like, because I was like a walking zombie when my dad, you know, passed. It was just so surreal. And that's beautiful. How the podcast was birthed, from, you know, me losing my dad and me wanting to continue his legacy, but also talk about grief in a way that, you know, other people weren't talking about it, except from the cliches of saying, "Oh, I know how you feel. We live to die," or the other sentiments that doesn't really help a person when they're in the vein of grief.
Right. Oh, you're doing such beautiful work. And thank you so much for everything that you do, your podcast, and all the wonderful guests that you have. You're helping so many people.
Thank you. Now for our call to action segment with Jaden Rae. So Jaden, I want you to share, what is your call to action for the listeners and viewers based on the aspects of microdosing and what we heard here today?
I have only one, okay? And it's to come see me on Instagram. It's Hey Jaden Rae, HeyJadenRae. So it's Hey Jaden Rae, and that's where I document my microdosing adventures. I'll connect with me there. I'll answer any questions that you have about microdosing. I also own Steamy Kitchen, so anything food related is steamykitchen.com. But yeah, I've been doing this for a very long time, and food blogging for 17 years before food blogging was even a thing. I've been doing this for a very long time, and now I'm so super excited to be able to align with my life calling. I feel like this is what I'm meant to do, is to heal people and to help people find their own journey.
And there you have it, listeners and viewers of GEMS podcast. You just heard Jaden Rae. We talked about all things microdosing. Make sure you go do your due diligence and research the subject to learn more, and subscribe and share this segment. We are found on 40 plus platforms. You can also follow us on YouTube at GEMS with Genesis Amaris Kemp for all things video content. We are also looking for people to continue to spread and advance the mission of GEMS podcast, which is to educate, inspire, motivate, while connecting the dots and bridging the gap for diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. So we need monetary donations and contributions, and you can find out more about becoming a sponsor by going to genesisamariscamp.net. And you'll also find out that we are ranked in the top 3% globally per www.listennotes.com. So until we chat next time, peace, love, and lots of blessings. Have yourself an amazing day and go learn something new.